Welcome back to Mind Your Biz. My name is Seth, and in today's episode of Privacy Chats, I have none other than Jake Yoakum Pyatt, who is from the Decred project, talking about a couple of new privacy features that have been added to the Decred stack. And I've got to be honest, I was not expecting to have this privacy chat because there's sort of a common belief that Decred is not private enough. And I'm very, very happy that Jake is here to help dispel that myth. Jake, welcome to Mind Your Biz.
Hi there. Thanks for having me, Seth.
Hey, it's a pleasure, and I really appreciate that you were able to make time. It's a Saturday. I mean, we're scheduled to release this interview a few weeks after we have it, IRL. But it's a Saturday. You didn't have to spend your time this way, and I'm glad that you chose to in discussing privacy. Because I mean, I could talk about. We mentioned this off camera. We could talk about privacy all day, evenings, weekends. But some would say I'm obsessed. So, but yeah. So let's talk about a little bit the privacy problem, right? The issue that most people are facing with privacy in cryptocurrency. And you had a really great way of discussing that and framing that earlier, where you mentioned it's not strictly an issue of privacy, but there's actually a more fundamental problem that people don't think about or take seriously enough when it comes to their holding of cryptocurrency. Would you remind me how you said it? Because I was really struck by the novelty of the way you framed it before.
So I think a lot of the cryptocurrency space revolves around this notion of custody. But if we take a look at custody and self-custody, what is that really about? That's really about sovereignty. That is that people are sovereign over their own assets and their own possessions. And that's what I feel like is a huge part of the cryptocurrency revolution. And so with the Decred project, we really focus on sovereignty and its various aspects. So there's more than one way to be sovereign, and privacy is, in my view, is a facet of sovereignty. Because if you're not, if everyone knows where all your assets are, or you don't have any on-chain privacy, then it begs the question. It's like, how sovereign are you? For example, if a target can trivially be put on your back and be like, oh, that guy has this many coins, and I can go to his house and take all his stuff. So I feel like sovereignty is a really important way to look at privacy.
Yeah, no, phenomenal. And I remember you mentioned that. I'm like, yeah, no, it really does. I do feel like that aligns very strongly with my worldview of privacy. And it's a great way of putting it succinctly, that so many people, you can think of doomsday scenarios and think of, imaginary horribles, a parade of imaginary horribles, the way some people like to say it. But it's not hard to imagine that, like you're saying, in a blockchain world, especially now in 2023, where we've seen so many instances of chain analysis resulting in problems for people, it's a lot easier for people to imagine now. These aren't imaginary, scenarios anymore. It's actually happened for a lot of people to have been doxxed or have their wallet addresses publicly linked to their identity. So yeah, it does seem a lot more real for people that sovereignty is under threat without there being an appropriate level of privacy with their crypto holdings. So let's talk a little about, well, I guess maybe let's jump back a little bit. I welcomed you to the show, but I'm not sure if the Mind Your Biz audience knows you, Jake. Could you mind giving us sort of a 30-second overview of who is Jake Yoakum Pyatt?
Sure thing. I've been working in the cryptocurrency space since late 2012, early 2013. We made a full stack re-implementation of Bitcoin called BTC Suite. We started that back in 2013. We did that until 2016, and then we pivoted to Decred because we felt that the combination of the core development team and miners in the context of Bitcoin were hyper centralized, so that effectively there's a central planning committee that runs in each of those contexts. So it was in need of some level of disruption that we felt would never actually happen solely in the context of Bitcoin. So then we made Decred in private between 2014 and 2016 and launched February 2016.
Wow. Okay. Got it. That's awesome. Well, first off, it's great to talk to people who've been involved in the space for so long. Now, I know that we haven't met or ever chatted before. This is our first time. I think I'm going to ask also for the benefit of the Mind Your Biz audience. Did I ask for payment in order to set up this interview?
No, there was no payment. It was incidental. You bumped into a conversation on Twitter, and then it was like, hey, we've never talked to you guys before, and then bada bing, bada boom, this happened.
Yeah, no, and that's the way I love being able to carve out this time for privacy projects. It's absolutely a personal passion of mine, and I've been doing these kinds of public interviews since 2018. So I was the first to speak with the earliest, the developer with the earliest commit to the crypto note, to the crypto note code base. So you could say the first Monero developer. It's not strictly speaking that exactly what happened, but first person to actually lay hands on crypto note before Monero was a twinkle in their developers' eyes. So but they were willing to do their first public interview on the Mind Your Biz channel, and so I think they saw that the obsession was real. So yeah, definitely appreciate that again that this happened. But I like having that confirmed for the record, right? So people are like, you're a paid shill. And I don't think I'm a paid shill, Jake. It seems like with the amount of time you've had on task, I don't think anybody could accuse you of either. You're clearly a builder and a serious person. So appreciate you making time for this, and yeah, and yeah, being willing to educate where you can.
So
let's talk.
I do have something that's a little bit of trivia here, which is that one of the original developers of Monero was one of our one of my co-founders with Decred, and that was Taco Time. And so Taco Time's out there. Hey there, how's it going?
That's awesome. Yeah, and what a great shared legacy. I mean, I know it's kind of funny. You can't talk about privacy, of course, in the cryptocurrency ecosystem without having a nod to Monero Labs, because they do show a lot of goodwill to so many other projects, even though they can be a little bit adversarial and crusty at times. I think they'll admit that too. But it's all in good fun. It's all in good faith, right? To try to have steel sharpening steel, so to speak. But that's great to know. Let's talk a little bit about Decred though,
Of course,
and some privacy tools that have been rolled out pretty recently. I think that that the contact sent that I spoke to about arranging this interview, they sent over a press release from the team about post-quantum mixing being added to your current implementation of CoinJoin, the stack, right, the suite that Decred uses for CoinJoin. Let's talk a little bit about that, and then some other technologies that Decred uses to help enhance people's privacy, which then enhances their sovereignty.
Sure thing. And so just at a very high level, what we do is we have something called that we call stake shuffle. And the reason we call it stake shuffle is because it's a specific implementation of a particular type of mixing, where what we do is we blend our staking, which is something like 60% of the circulating supply of Decred is tied up, and the bulk of that is mixed. So that all your mixing is basically merged with the staking, which really hugely increases the anonymity set. So there's projects like Zcash that have a very serious problem in terms of like how many people are opting into using shielded transactions, and we don't have that same problem. I think we have something over 60% of our circulating supply is mixed at this point. So that process uses coin shuffle. So coin shuffle is a process where if you read their paper uses strictly elliptic curve cryptography. So that's very straightforward. You use public key infrastructure. You create a shared secret. I'm not going to go into the details of that, but suffice it to say that what I noticed was I was thinking this process occurs off chain. Basically, the actual computations to do the mixing occur off chain. So because they're using PKI, why not just make it post quantum? We can do that, and so we added an extra step to their coin shuffle protocol that they wrote about, and we were able to basically make it post quantum. So instead of using elliptic curve cryptography, we use NTRU prime to do these mixes. And what the effect of that is that it makes it so that, like, let's say at some point 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years in the future, even if somebody gets a quantum computer, they can't just hit a button and then go, oh, now I can see where all these Decred transactions went. And Monero people appreciate this, which is why they do perfectly private, and then not perfectly binding. So with Monero.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. It sounds like then with that change to the new cryptography standard. And my apologies, I'm not super well read on this. I know that NIST I think they had 3 or 4 candidates for post-quantum cryptography that they were promoting. This is on that short list then that NIST has been
want to say NTRU Prime, I think, made it to the second to last round or the last round. I personally, while I think that these standards processes are, they're good, the unfortunate reality to me is that it's like, NIST is a sock puppet for the NSA. So it's like, as much as we want to be like,
Right.
we're going to choose the best algorithm, they're not going to choose the best algorithm. And then the way that works is they save the best algorithms for themselves and then go, oh yeah, no, that's classified. We can't share those ones with you.
Right. Well, I'm really glad that you're 2 steps ahead of my question there too, because it's like on one hand, it's almost a counter indicator to be the one that's chosen, right, publicly chosen by NIST.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, they have put significant resources into making sure that these are being developed too. So like you only there's only so far you can go to find novel implementations of cryptography where teams are independently funded, right? So yeah, that's so tell, without going too nerdy here, because I know in the interest of time, we don't want to jump down that rabbit hole. But how did this become the choice, like the obvious choice for the Decred team?
Well, to me, it was that we had Stake Shuffle. It was working. There was lots of opt-in participation. It had already gotten pretty busy. And then I was just thinking, well, what can we do to improve this? Well, there's 2 things that we can do to improve it. And one of them was low-hanging fruit, which we did right away. And one of them is a little bit higher up the tree, so we're still working on that. So the low-hanging fruit was the post-quantum cryptography. And because none of these computations land on chain, that is, everything is still elliptic curve that hits the chain in terms of, addresses and pub keys and priv keys and stuff. But the part that occurs off chain, we have a free hand. We can replace, whatever it is, like a 32 byte key with a 1,000 byte key, right? So there's no like bloating of the chain as a function of that. So we did that and we're like, okay, that's the low hanging fruit. But then to go, in terms of introspection and asking, well, what can we do to improve our privacy, is I would argue that the next piece that's unfinished, that's actually a work in progress and hopefully will be landing in the next few months, would be peer-to-peer mixing. So we use a centralized server to coordinate these mixes. It's non-custodial. The server can't see where the coins go to. But in the longer term, we hope to eliminate that to make the whole process peer-to-peer. So it can't be like, oh, we shut down the server, the mixing stops, and now and even though it's non-custodial.
Okay, phenomenal. Yeah, I read also on the Decred site for the Coin Shuffle Plus as it's laid out on the project page, that one of the known potential risks is that there could be metadata leakage on the centralized servers anyway. So it sounds like going peer to peer. I mean, you're at the mercy of how secure people run their own systems, but bare minimum, like it's no longer the onus has been shifted from the Decred project, right, of potentially leaking any type of metadata that could be run on those servers for all the off-chain side of the mixing stack. So sounds like
well, it's actually a similar problem, right, with Monero, which is that as private as Monero may be, if people are not using Tor or not using I2P or whatever privacy layer they want to use to conceal their IP metadata, then that data can be mined by people who are carefully watching the network. So you can end up correlating, I see a Monero transaction and it's coming from a certain IP, in the same way that you can go, I see an inbound connection to the mixer coming from a particular IP. So that's, the IP metadata layer is something that people really have to handle sort of, themselves. There's only so much any project, whether it's Monero or Decred, can do to be like, hey, don't be doing this over, a plain text internet connection in China or something, right?
Yeah. So that's one thing where, I mean, again, to keep the main thing, and Decred, I'll say there's some inspiration that can be taken maybe from the Samurai Wallet dev team, where they force every user to use Tor, right? It's just built into the app. But I mean, that's not as practical, I think, for every dev team, not always practical for every user and every use case, but that is something maybe worth considering, right? Like kind of force best practices, whether it's an I2P tunnel or it's Tor or something else that's built into the wallet client. So you make more participants sort of better citizens of the privacy community. But maybe a conversation for another time. Let me ask, as far as the rest of the privacy stack that Decred has, there was some other stuff that came up recently or that's roadmapped. I think actually you covered it. It is the peer-to-peer is what's it called, Bison Relay? Is that right?
Yeah, so I mean, a problem that we've had, and I know that some other cryptocurrency projects have, is one of censorship. We have very serious problems with our reach on Twitter, and there's never been an explanation for what happened. It's basically our project account got effectively shut off in fall of 2017. As I expect you can imagine, that's been a bit of a hindrance to the project, and so as a result of that, after years of being fed up with this, we made something that was roughly, it's a more open source version of Signal that tightly integrates cryptocurrency, the Lightning Network on Decred in this case, so that instead of, you can basically eliminate all metadata except for things like the IP metadata that we were just talking about in terms of communicating with people by requiring a micropayment over LN prior to uploading, a piece of data. So instead of, for example, normally there's a server and there's like a Jake account and there might be a Seth account, and then somebody can be like, I can infer that the two of you are communicating by merit of the accounts on the server. Well, you can't do that with Bison Relay because what we've done is we've effectively eliminated accounts. Everything is just an opaque blob, encrypted blob that gets uploaded. One person uploads it, one person downloads it, and in both cases, there's an LN micropayment made in order to both send it and to receive it. So the idea is to create sort of the infrastructure for a parallel internet that can function as, basically social media. It can function as an e-commerce platform. It can function as a, like a Signal-like messaging system, but all in one place and without sort of the architectural problems that are present with moderated social media platforms.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, I'm a huge fan of encrypting all the things. I think if you can, the more things we can encrypt, and the more clients that help us to encrypt more things, I think probably the better. As long as as long as you know that your encryption is not fundamentally broken or backdoored, I think that's great. But yeah, that sounds like it's really, really fun. In practical terms, on the user experience side, what does that look like? And I apologize, I didn't have like a demo or anything that I could take a look at before we chatted.
No
But if you
worries.
can describe it to me.
Well, the way it works, right, is that you need a small amount of Decred in order to be onboarded. We're working on making that a smoother process because obviously, acquiring an altcoin can sometimes be a real challenge, as anyone who's familiar with the space is aware. So we're trying to smooth that part. But basically, once you have a small amount of Decred, you sync what is effectively an SPV Lightning node, and based on LND from Bitcoin, we ported that over to Decred. And then that syncs up. That takes like 5 or 10 minutes, depending on your internet connection. And that's really a one-time thing. And then from there, you open a Lightning channel for sending messages. You can optionally open a channel for receiving tips and payments. And then from that point, you basically take an invite. And so even though, most social media networks are ones where it's like you get on and they try to make you follow some dumb celebrity and you're like, I don't really care about this. I don't care what Britney Spears is doing or, the random person on the television today. But the way it would work is that you'd invite somebody and then they connect with you. And then from there, you can invite them into other group chats and into other, contexts. So what you can do also is, in addition to all of this, you can post, and then people can subscribe to your posts just like they would on any other social media platform. The difference being that you can literally post anything. There's no rules, and because basically everything's encrypted and the metadata is scrubbed, the server operator effectively has no custody over the data payloads, that is the messages, or of the metadata that you'd normally see moving on a server. So if you're at all familiar with Mastodon, there have been serious problems where people run Mastodon nodes and then they're like, I disagree with your politics, so I'm shutting your account down. So there's none of that. So basically it's all just neutral. It's all encrypted blobs flowing back and forth with a bunch of little micropayments to prevent spam.
That's awesome. Okay, so basically, it's well, if you want to spam, then it's a rich man's game. Spam on this network is a rich man's game only. That's awesome. That does make sense to me. I think like there's definitely proof in the certainly in Twitter lately where pay to play, like it wasn't a showstopper, right? And I think that's becoming more the path forward. Now, in their case, obviously, there are other problems, but yeah, that sounds amazing. We've gone a little over the time that I told you we would spend taking a look at the recent privacy roadmap for Decred. Is there anything else coming up that the Mind Your Biz audience would be maybe interested in by way of cryptography or rather privacy and improved sovereignty tools and custody tools?
Well, something we've been working towards is some DEX stuff. So we have a decentralized exchange that we made. Is I know that there are other projects that have made their own decentralized exchanges, and there's whole chains and projects that exclusively do decentralized exchange. But we made one so that it's effectively, you don't need a third-party token, and we have some. We just recently added support for Ethereum tokens, so that you can swap directly from from Decred into Ethereum or into, say, stable coins on Ethereum. So we just added that, and that's more about sovereignty and a little bit less about privacy. But they're intertwined concepts, right? If you can't spend or exchange your currency, I mean, how sovereign are you? How much privacy do you have? It's all and then hey, from a privacy perspective, a DEX is a huge win. From the KYC AML perspective, because everybody else has to basically spy on you at the behest of the government. So or one or more governments, as the case may be.
That's awesome. Okay, so as far as the various ERC20 trading pairs and the various EVM chains that are supported, you're starting with Ethereum and a couple of base trading pairs for Decred on this DEX. Yeah,
it literally got merged to master like I think yesterday. So it's going to take it's going to take a few weeks for us to get trading pairs going and and get them a little busy. But all the pieces are in place now, so that's finally done.
That's phenomenal. Congratulations. That's a huge achievement. And yeah, I'm excited to be one of the first channels that you're able to deliver that news to post production, right? So yeah, or post main, right? Yeah. So that's great. Any plans for that to include other EVM chains or any other, because the prevailing wisdom is, once you added support for Ethereum, you can more easily add support for, say, Polygon and Binance Smart Chain, etc.
We'll get to it in due course. I mean, we were more interested in adding chains that we felt like had a little bit more of an ethos alignment with us. Like, for example, we were keen to add Monero, but then we found out that the way Monero does atomic swaps is substantially different than say, a Bitcoin-like chain. The CryptoNight chains, basically, they have a different kind of scripting, and so you have to do the swap in the different order, and then that basically plays havoc with our software. So, we're kind of picking and choosing the ones that we support. I think we support, Zcash, Dogecoin, say Bitcoin Cash, and I think now just Ethereum, and then I want to say the ERC stable coins is my understanding.
Got it. Okay, that's awesome. I mean, that's enough, right? Like I didn't mean to add a new work or a feature request here, in any official way. This sounds great. Really appreciate you laying that out. And Jake, I just really appreciate you having that focus on privacy the way that you have, and appreciate your voice and your building in the space. Where's the best place, I should ask, outside of clearly the website? Where's the best place for the Mind Your Biz community to find out more about Decred and to have a conversation with the leadership and with the rest of the community?
The best way to interact with us is to jump on our Matrix channel. Bison Relay isn't yet as smooth as we would like, so we're not ready to just start pulling everybody directly in there. But we have a Matrix channel, so go to chat.decred.org. And from there, you can find your way into numerous channels and then converse with us about, well, whatever you really want to talk about, as long as it isn't spamming. Just no spamming, please.
Awesome. Well, that's a fair request, Jake. Appreciate you spending the time with me and the Mind Your Biz community today, and yeah, just thank you so much for your commitment to privacy, Mind Your Biz community. Yeah, that's a wrap. We will see you in the next one.
Thanks for having me.